What's up, everybody? I'm Tyler Rogahn with Power Wash Academy, and today we're going to be washing a house. We're actually going to be doing a partial house wash. This particular home does have some areas that have some buildup on it, which was the main concern for the customer. They didn't necessarily want the whole house washed, and we're working with a budget. So we are able to selectively pick the areas that were of main concern, and we can address that. We'll be able to get a good result out of what we're working on, still make some good money with it, and the customer is going to be able to stay within their budget. So every now and then, that's what you're going to end up working with. Ideally, I'd like to wash the entire house, although some areas are not quite as dirty as others. It feels good just to know that we wash the entire thing and prevent any algae growth from coming back on the areas that we haven't washed sooner than the rest of the home. But overall, we'll get a great result. As you can see behind me, this particular home does have some stone. It's mainly brick, but there are a lot of stone accents on here that are the main problem areas. We've got this front area of the home was the customer's primary concern when they called us out, and we were just going to address this for them, but we did get, doing a walk around with the customer, we did get to the point where we noticed a few more things that would definitely benefit from a good cleaning. The roof was recently installed, and so there's no growth on there that we need to address. This front part of the home is going to be the area that has the most buildup and discoloration. So we do have to work around these metal lamps, which they do have a nice shiny finish on there, and we want to keep them that way. And so we're going to be careful about pre-rinsing and rinsing when we're applying our house wash mix. Up here around the front, there's not a whole lot going on that needs to be cleaned, but we will give it a quick once over with the rinse. We've got an aggregate driveway, got an aggregate sidewalk here that is starting to show some discoloration. That will definitely look great after we're done with it. We do have some delicate plants here, and we're going to soak those down, of course, before we get started on the wash, and rinse those during. Fortunately, the main area we're going to be spraying is going to be from this side over, and all of these flowers shouldn't be affected, but we'll still rinse them down in case we get a gust of wind and a little bit of overspray. These stone borders around the flower beds are really common to start having algae growth on them. And so we'll come through as we're rinsing the plants down, and we'll rinse that off before we come through with a pump up sprayer, and we'll spray those down. It's nice to have the pump up sprayer so I can do a more localized spraying on the area instead of using my big house wash and risk that splashing everywhere. I will end up using a pump up sprayer today, as well as our soft wash system. Over here on this side of the house, we've also got another area that's becoming discolored. The customer did mention that they had a water leak there at one point in time, and they think that they've gotten it repaired sufficiently to keep water from coming in the house. And so she mentioned that the roofers made the repair and that they sealed the stone afterward. And so I don't know how much of the stone was sealed, if they sealed just the brick or what the case may be. And so that could be questionable if we're going to get the desired result. If that algae is still on the surface and they sealed it in, it may be locked under that surface of the sealer to where we're not going to be able to penetrate it with our house wash mix. I'm hoping that's not the case, because I'd really like this thing to come out looking perfect when we're all done with it. We've got this stone archway that's got some pretty serious buildup on it. I'm going to come through first with my pressure washer, and I'll be using a soft wash tip on there so it's not direct high pressure, but I will try to knock off the bulk of this that's on the surface. I'll rinse that off so that we can use less chemical and time waiting for that to get back to its normal coloration. This side of the home doesn't show a lot of signs of growth on it, and the customer did mention she would prefer if we can come through and wash the house without taking any risk of getting chemicals on these garage doors. And We work around these all the time, and it's typically not an issue. If we were to wash this side of the house, we'll thoroughly soak that wood with our pressure washer before we come through with the house wash mix, and then rinse it again just like we do the plants. But since they specifically requested us not to, I don't have any problem with not washing this area. There is just a minimal amount of this gray showing up in this area, and I'm confident I can go ahead and treat this area with our little pump up sprayer. You know, I was mentioning a localized spray, and so that's going to put out a lot less volume, and it's going to be very easy for me to soak this real quickly without a large volume that our soft wash unit puts out. The aggregate driveway, it is turning gray and black, and so we're going to wash it first with our surface cleaner, and we'll probably use hot water. I do notice that we've got this one area that continually has bad drainage. It's got a lot of buildup and dirt in there, so I'm going to try to use pressure and blast that out of here for the most part. I want to be pretty quick about that because this water is going to run off of the driveway and it slopes down here, so this is going to be a pretty massive pool of water at some point during our cleaning. And so I'll try to get that out of here and do the best that we can with it, but you will run into times where you're going to have pooling water and there's just no way around it. And so if we wanted to, you know, use a recovery unit, we could probably suck some of that out, but with the volume that comes through here, it's probably going to saturate this ground and have a pool in the grass as well as the driveway, and it's going to continually run in here. She's dealt with this for the whole time she's been in the home, so she can know what to expect. That's just not a pressure washing problem. The back of the house looks pretty good on the home itself. We do have a little bit that needs to be addressed down here at the bottom, and we can come through, knock the bulk of that off with the pressure washer, and then just treat those areas if we need to with the house wash mix. We've got a nice pool area back here. All of this stone is going to be treated. I'm going to have a little hotter mix in my pump up sprayer, and that's what I'm going to be cleaning the top of this stone with. It's going to need to be a little stronger than what I've got mixed up in my big batch tank for my soft wash unit, and that's going to just ensure that a couple applications should take care of that, and me not back here with the weaker mix spraying, you know, over and over. I will go ahead and soak the flat work back here with my soft wash unit just to brighten this up, and I should be able to come through and actually probably just wand this off instead of running a surface cleaner on it. This has got a good, relatively new coating on it, and so I'm not really too concerned with compromising the integrity of the surface. But if I don't need to run a surface cleaner, then I won't. If I come back here, I'm wanding it, and I'm noticing wand marks, you know, cleaning the dirt off in some areas better than others, we may surface clean. But I think that a soft wash and a good rinse should clean this up, because the majority of what we're working with is going to be where chairs and tables have set. The dirt's blown under there and dried, and it's kind of stuck. We've got this area over here near the fireplace. It's got, the grout's starting to turn a little gray, so I'm gonna put a light coat on here and just give it a good once over and rinse it. And one thing to look out for, if you don't already know, if you've got any outlets around your grill areas or where TVs plug in, anything like that, we've gone the extra mile and taped this off, taped underneath there, and went ahead and wrapped plastic on top of it and taped it off again. It's common for you to get a false sense of security when you're working around these outlets. You think that it's an outdoor outlet, it's meant to get wet, but most of the time that little piece of foam that's in there that seals it off, it'll get thin, or it may have fallen out, and that's going to be bad news if you just start spraying in this area and hoping water doesn't get in there. So we've taped those off. That's the only one we're going to need to deal with. The furniture's already been moved out of the way, which is great for us. We've got one other area here where I believe they had a toy chest or something like that that has left us with a little bit of a rust stain. And so I'll come through here, wash this off first, apply some rust remover plus to it, and that should not be a problem to get that area looking even again. We've got a few plants around this back flower bed. Of course, we'll soak those down before we start applying our soft wash mix. but if we can, you know, we can get this and pull these up, spray that off, and then we can put our solution on there if we need to, and then that can all lay back down. As you can see, this under area, this underside is already kind of dead and crusty, so it's not going to be a big concern if we spray our house wash mix and then lay that back down on top of it. Those should be able to take it. We've got some green growth going on here, which is actually one of my favorites. It seems to change color really quickly, and it seems to be a pretty dramatic change from a customer's point of view. And so that'll be good to get this all back up to the way it looked when they moved in. And so they've been in the home for, I think she said 10 years, and the home has never been washed. And so really, that's not too bad considering the age of the home, and this is the first time being cleaned. This growth could have been a lot worse. But overall, I think that's gonna be the main areas we're working with. We've got a few window sills that have bricks underneath them that have dirt buildup in the front. We'll rinse those off. Gonna be pretty easy, just a quick once over with the wand. For the most part, you'll see me, if I'm getting close to the stone, I'm gonna be using a J-rod with a soft wash tip, and I'm also using the dual lance wand. And so that's gonna allow me, if I need to get close to the stone, that'll allow me to do so with using the volume of water to do the cleaning over using high pressure. And so I've mentioned in the past, this dual lance wand is great to have. It somewhat eliminates the need for a J-rod. I can put my normal tip in here. If I didn't have that, put my normal tip in, open this valve, it drops this back down to low pressure just like it would be with a soft wash tip. And so you can choose one or both, but I definitely recommend if you're doing this kind of work that you at least have a J-rod or a dual lance wand. So I think that is about what I'm looking at. I've got a good game plan. The customer did request that we start in the backyard today. So we've already routed our hose back to the back. We've got our house wash mix, which has already been prepared. It's ready to go. We've got a pump up sprayer, which has got a little stronger batch in it for some of the touch up areas. And I've got a little pump up sprayer with some Rust Remover Plus for that one area in the back. So now that all our chemicals are ready, our hoses are routed, we started filling up right when we got here. That's been going for about 30 minutes now. My tank's almost full. I feel like we are ready to rock and roll. So we'll fire up these machines and go back here and start washing her down. Okay, I do appreciate you guys watching these videos. If you like what you see, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That way you can watch all the videos that we put out. And if you hit the bell, you will be alerted whenever a new video comes out. We've got more videos to come. If you've got any questions or comments, drop them down below. If you want to see us clean something specifically or you've got a question about it, put it down below and we will do our best to get around making a video to address something that you may have questions about. We'll be happy to do that. And so I think it's about time to fire up the machines and get this party started. I'm going to start off by soaking down the plants, and I'm going to do a rinse on the areas that we're going to apply our house wash mix to. One thing I do like to do is mention to the customer before we get started that odds are some of this dirt is going to run into the pool, so it may be a little cloudy, but it clears up within a couple hours. And so although it's not a huge deal, I would rather them be prepared for that than come out and then make a little mental note, oh, look at my pool. So if they know that I'm probably going to get some dirt in there, they walk out. That's exactly what I told them was going to happen. Not a big surprise. Not going to be upsetting for them, but a majority of what needs to be cleaned off of this pool deck is the dirt. So I'll do my best to break it loose and rinse it off into the grass, but that is a thing you'll be dealing with if you're working around swimming pools. And so let's see here if I can get my gun primed up. I should be good to go. You can see these areas with the thicker growth. This is what I'm going for, is to come through and get some of that off first if possible. I think we will go ahead and try to run the surface cleaner back here. It's I can tell the areas that look clean whenever I go over them with the wand, they're getting cleaner. And so for efficiency, I know that this is a good coating on here. It's not gonna give, so we're gonna go ahead and run that back here. We'll have Adrian come move this furniture in just a second. But I've got my soft wash tip on here, and I've got this valve open on the dual lance wand. So I'm comfortable with getting fairly close to this fabric, which can be fairly delicate. But as you can see, the pressure is not high enough to really be of any concern. So my skin can take it with no problem. I have a good feeling that I'll be just fine rinsing off the fabric as well. And I want to pre-soak this. I'm not going to necessarily be spraying house wash mix on the furniture, but you never know. You might get a gust of wind, or you may have a little overspray. So if I soak those down first, I don't take any chance of them having any spotting going on in that fabric. Okay, so I'm just gonna take my hose, run back around this other side real quick so I can soak those plants. And these areas that have the darker bits of discoloration, I'm gonna come through and treat those first, and those can be dwelling with our house wash mix on there as I'm working on everything else, because that's probably gonna be the slowest to clean up. All right, thank you. So I'm gonna get the small sprayer, and I'm gonna start doing these borders around the top. And when I get to these areas, I'll just have you lift this up and hold it up out of the way so that I can get under here. In fact, if you would go ahead and just hold that up, I'm gonna go ahead and get that extra bit of dirt and leaves off of there so that when I spray on the surface, okay, I might get you. Okay, that's good. Adrian, that rug that's right there, in a second when I get to that corner, I'll have you stand that up around those plants that are right there in the corner so that I don't get overspray on those. This is a good thing to keep an eye out for. Normal flower bed, we've got roses and things growing, but in this section, the customer has planted food that they probably plan on eating. We've got tomatoes, possibly cucumbers there, jalapenos, cilantro, and basil. So if they're gonna be eating this, they're definitely keeping a close eye on it. They're gonna try to baby these things to get them big enough to eat. So use a little extra precaution when you're working around that stuff. And we're just gonna build a little shield right there to keep any of that misting from flying over there. I mean, these are a pretty soft leaf to begin with. So in addition to that being a food item that they're gonna wanna ingest, it's a delicate plant on top of that. So I'll go through with my small sprayer. I'm gonna touch up all of these areas up on top. Okay, thank you, sir. So I'm gonna go through with a pretty heavy coat on the first go around for this top cap of stone. And after that, it'll work its magic, and I most likely can just come back and do a little touch up on the areas that have still got some discoloration. But my initial spray, I'll thoroughly cover everything. And ideally, one good soaking would take care of it, but a lot of the time I'll need to reapply as it will start to dry and stop doing its work. So, okay, Adrian, if you'll come pull these bushes back, I'm gonna spray under those. All right. Okay, so those are the worst areas here in the backyard. And we started about 3 to 5 minutes ago on this area. So I'll come back and take a look, make sure I've got some color change going on. Where it was black, now it's starting to turn more of a brown, which is what I'm hoping for. If I am not noticing the change that I want, will you grab the pressure hose for me? I just sprayed all over this thyme. And so if I'm not getting the color change, then I'm gonna come through and add a little bit more to the mix, but this is starting to change like I wanted it to. And so by the time we get through soaking this lower deck area, we should be good to go. And I'll come back and look for any areas that might be drying up. This stuff will pool in some areas and stay wet. Some areas where it runs off, it'll dry a little bit quicker. So just go through before I set this down and just touch up anything else that I need to before I start working on another aspect of the job. Okay, I'm ready to fire up the soft wash unit. I'm gonna soak this lower area before we come through. You can start that up, and then if you'll bring the surface cleaner back here. Oh, you did? Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. And so for soft wash guns, there are a few different options out there. My machine came with a longer PVC style wand, which are great. It definitely will get the job done. With those, you'll be using an interchangeable J-rod tip, low pressure tips, which is great. I just prefer to use this one. This is called the spray down gun. This is the blue one. They also make a red one. But the good thing about this thing is that it eliminates the need for me to have a J-rod and be switching those tips out. If I need a long stream, I can pull it, open the valve completely. It'll make a long stream for me. If I want to have more of a fan or a mist, I'll lightly pull the trigger on that and, you know, can adjust the cone shape that I want. And it's a pretty versatile gun. They're a little bit more expensive than the other guns, but I feel like the quality of these definitely makes up for the difference in cost. They're really rugged, got rubber ends, so it can take a lot of abuse. And if it gets banged around or thrown in the back of the truck or anything like that, it's got rubber on all the ends that would take the brunt of an impact. So these are good guns. This is, let's see here. This is the RB65, and I've been using this for about a year now. Same one, haven't had to make any repairs to it, haven't had any problems with it. It even got drugged down the street accidentally one day, and about 10 miles later, I found out it was back there. Still works beautifully. So if it'll pass that test, I'm happy with that. I'll start soaking up here, Adrian, and then I'm gonna work that area. And if you could just kind of shuffle those chairs around as I'm getting to it. Same goes for this stuff back here. And we'll just get a good soaking and I'll start the surface cleaning. So as you can see, a light pull, and I've got a cone-shaped spray coming out. I'll be real careful when I'm spraying up around these plants to keep it nice and low so it doesn't become airborne and land on the flowers. We do have a little bit of wind to work with today, so being mindful of that, of where your overspray is going, is going to be key. And then full release with this thing, and I've got a nice steady stream coming out. And I'm looking. All of that growth on top of the stone is starting to disappear. We're probably about 10 to 12 minutes in since its first application, and I like to shoot for 15 minutes dwell time. So if it's pretty close to being gone at that point, then our mix is gonna be right where I needed it to be. Okay, so we've got our furniture moved. I've got this one little section that I'm gonna soak. Then I can start surface cleaning. Okay, so while Adrian's moving some more of this furniture out of the way, I was coming through with a little bit of a pre-rinse beforehand to kind of get an idea of how well this is gonna clean up. I was going to probably just wand the areas that had more dirt buildup, but I was noticing as I was doing that even the areas that look pretty clean are getting even cleaner. So instead of me going over every square inch with a soft wash tip, I'm gonna go ahead and run a surface cleaner over it. I would do a test spot first to make sure that the surface can tolerate it. Just from years of experience, I can tell that this is a good quality material and it's still in great shape. I don't notice any chipping or flaking anywhere, which is a red flag if you are going to be surface cleaning one of these. But I will also do a test spot. Can't totally go by my assumptions, and so I'll do a little test spot on this back strip here. If I notice anything looking funny, then I'll take a step back and go ahead and go with the little slower route, which is washing it off with the wand. Now, big heavy things like this, it would be nice to wash underneath it, but it is very heavy. I seriously doubt it ever gets moved, and I just don't want to take a chance of either breaking it or hurting myself. So we're going to wash around that and still get everything looking right. But you know, I'll let the customer know that if there is anything that I can't personally move, that if they want to help get it out of the way, that would be key. If not, then it'll still look clean. If it never moves, then it's not really an issue of what it looks like underneath there. Okay, I'm happy with that. We got a good, thorough soaking. And this is only about a 3% mix that I'm putting down here, which is strong enough to kill any growth, but still relatively safe to use around plants. And I'm gonna set this gun down. I'm gonna set it down in an area that I've already sprayed with my chemical. This gun doesn't leak, but if you ever do have a leak and you don't notice it, it's not a good time to find out after it's been laying out in the grass and you got a big dead patch of grass. So I'm gonna leave that there, setting on that area. If it does drip, it'll be on an area that's already coated with our house wash mix. And on this back little section, can you move that little toy chest out of the way? So when I surface clean, I'm gonna do this top area first, and then I'll come through and do this section right here, which will allow you to move the furniture back in this area that I've already cleaned. And I'm not using heat on this surface. The heat could potentially soften it and cause some flaking or peeling. And so thinking that the best way to go is with cold water on this. There's not a lot of heavy buildup. I don't see any oil stains or grease spills, so that's gonna be pretty ideal just for a regular cold water surface cleaning. So I'm gonna do my test spot to see how the surface is gonna hold up. So this is my little test area that I'm running the surface cleaner. If I notice that the water runoff is cloudy, that lets me know that something's breaking loose off of the surface. But I'm surface cleaning this and the water is totally clear running off, so that's a good indicator that this is still in good condition and it can tolerate a little bit of pressure if needed. And when you are working around a pool deck, you can do one of two things is what I prefer to do. When you're working around these little skimmer covers, a lot of times they're made of plastic or maybe metal, but if you run your surface cleaner directly over them, there's a good chance that the force of the water spraying up there is gonna knock that thing up out of its position and hit around under your surface cleaner and probably break it. And so if I'm not gonna take them out, when I'm running my surface cleaner, I like to position to where the lid is not completely under my surface cleaner. I'll come through, run my wheels over it, or run the edge of my surface cleaner down the middle, and then when I come back up, I'll do the same thing on the opposite side, but that eliminates the possibility of that getting kicked up in there and damaging your surface cleaner. as I'm cleaning this top cap, I was starting to notice underneath all of that growth that there has been somebody pressure washing back here to clean this up with high pressure. I can see fan tip marks here that you can see just are coming back and forth, and it's inconsistent. And that wasn't something that I'd noticed before, but it is something we'll go ahead and document and point out to the customer. That gives them all the more reason to let a professional come out and do it next time. It would take a lot of work to even that out and remove those marks off of there when initially probably what should have happened is to spend the money to have a professional come out and do it properly instead of, you know, saving a few bucks and getting it looking good enough, but now it's damaged, and that's going to be quite a bit of work for somebody to repair if they do have an issue with that. All right, so that just about does it for what I'm gonna need to use the surface cleaner back here for. I'm gonna go ahead and switch back over to my wand. Now, up in a lot of these corners, and around flower pots and things like that, and the edges, I'll go ahead and use my dual length pressure washer wand. And I'm gonna put a regular white tip on the end of my gun. And the reason I'm going to do that is that there probably will be a couple little areas that have some buildup that I will apply some pressure to. But for the most part, I'll just be rinsing this, but up in a couple little nooks and crannies, if I need to apply a little pressure to the top of this stone, I'll be able to clean it with more pressure than a soft wash tip, but not quite enough to leave damages like the last person did. And so I'll grab my wand, go across here. I'm going to need to apply some pressure to get this buildup off of here. The algae is pretty much gone, but that one bad section still does have quite a bit of buildup on it. And so far, so good. And what I would like to do is, if I do apply pressure to something and there's any chance of making any marks, kind of goes the same way for a driveway, is the pattern that you are going across it, if it does create any sort of etching or anything like that, you want to minimize that as much as possible. You can't always tell 100% if it's going to do that or not. So if you plan ahead and the pattern that you go about spraying it, if it's consistent all the way around, it'll be a lot less noticeable than that person who cleaned it before who's doing this number. This is how they're cleaning it. And that's how you get all these unappealing lines. So what I like to do, with lower pressure, of course, you can see both of these are putting out water. I'm probably putting out maybe 1,000 PSI or so. And so what I'll do is I'll come through and go back and forth like this. There are still a couple little dark spots on here. If this way that I just cleaned it doesn't take it off, I'll come back and go ahead and apply a couple little touch-up sprays with the pump-up sprayer. So I'll come back to that. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this patio off before the dirt starts getting dried and stuck in. You got me, Adrian? Thank you. So this is the area, these are the areas where my surface cleaner didn't butt all the way up against the crack. That's why I like to keep this pressure tip on here so that I can get in there like that. Just a little fine-tuned cleaning against that edge. This one's gonna be a little trickier because I'll blow mud everywhere if I go side to side. Okay, so I'm going to treat this little rust stain right here. It's pretty light, and this surface responds pretty well to Rust Remover Plus. And so I've got about an average mix in here. I've got 1 gallon of Rust Remover Plus and a half a gallon of water. And so it is just a little diluted, but I'm thinking this should probably disappear relatively quickly. And look at that, easy money. And so I do like working with these pool surfaces. The rust stains just melt away right before your eyes. And so I did notice one other little small speck on this porch earlier that I think I may go ahead and address if I can still find it. So this little area right here, piece of furniture or a little nail or something may have been there, but one little spray of that and it should go away within a minute or less, I would say. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And so I'll check that in just a second, but I am confident it will be gone. Okay, I'm happy with all that. So we can put this back on the trailer. I'm just gonna go ahead and rinse away that product that was sprayed back here. Okay. So everything is pretty well rinsed off. There is one little area back here that the way the ground is leveled, it's gonna allow some dirt to run back up on here. But if I can give it a quick burst and get the majority of it out of there, that's more ideal than trying to wash every bit of it away and flooding that area more and causing more dirt to come out. So we can see we've got this one stretch right here that is not to my satisfaction yet. So I'm definitely gonna retreat that area. All of the other areas look good. There's a couple small spots on that top near that flower bed, but overall, that's gonna be an acceptable result. These drains they have in the sidewalk are pretty nice in theory, but more times than not, they won't flow out properly. So at that point, it becomes a dirt trap. And it's gonna keep the water from draining off like it was designed to, and it starts creating these mud streaks. So if you're noticing, every time you rinse a lot of dirt coming up out of there, just stop, go ahead, wash that whole channel and get all the dirt out of there you possibly can, and get that bulk of it off, and then come back with your normal rinse. And that'll keep you from fighting that dust, constantly washing back up on the surface. Okay, we are done with the soft wash. If you want to just pull it back up to the front of the house, we're gonna use that on the front portion and most likely on the driveway with the post treatment. I'm going to go through with the pump up sprayer. And in fact, if you'll help me real quick before you do that, just cover these plants once more. You can see those areas that weren't giving us the desired result. The second application is definitely doing the trick. And we should be able to just leave that on there, and when we come back, it's gonna look like we wanted it to. So there are some areas of the driveway that are quite a bit darker than the rest. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do a pre-treatment. I'm waiting on another batch to be mixed up in my pump up sprayer. And so I'm gonna go ahead and saturate this area because I know it's probably gonna have to go really slow with the surface cleaner to get the desired results. So I've already got a good bit left in my batch mix for my soft wash unit. So I'll go ahead and pre-treat some of this area, and I'll leave a little bit for after in case I need to do a post-treatment. But the aggregate typically cleans up pretty well, and it doesn't leave marks like it will a lot of the time with a heavily built up concrete driveway. So I'll go ahead and spray a little down here and let that get to work. I've got more mix than I needed, so I'm gonna go ahead and pre-treat this whole thing so at least it won't go to waste. There's this one little area in front of the home that's not necessarily a part of the home, but it probably gets looked at every day when the customer pulls in. And so this little square right here doesn't take any extra time, very little bit of chemical. We'll let that soak and dwell, and little added bonus for them. Okay, so we've gotten a pretty good result on the house, the driveway, pool deck, and there is one area though that there was a repair made on the home. Roofers came in, tried to fix a leak, and for some reason or another, they thought it would be a good idea to seal an area of the stone, which most of the time you're not going to get a significant enough leak that sealing stone is ever going to resolve your issue. But that being said, the stone is sealed. The algae was on the surface and now it's sealed in. I have applied my house wash mix twice, and then I used a more concentrated batch out of my pump up sprayer, trying to see if we can get down to that layer where the algae growth was. And if we look up here, this is what we're left with. So that being said, the algae is going to be a part of this house now. Until that sealer finally breaks down over years and will allow some penetration from a soft wash mix, it's going to be there. You could put a stripper on there and take the sealer off, and then we could get to it, but that's obviously not going to be a part of what we're doing here. For this customer, trying to stay within a certain price range, stripping stone and then soft washing again is just not something that's going to be ideal for this customer. So as you can see, if you ever do plan on sealing any stone, step number one is going to be getting it clean first. That stuff will be there for quite a while, but I did discuss that with the customer and let her know that is a probability that it's not going to come out completely. So that's a little disappointing. Whenever I do a house wash, I like to get every bit that I can as clean as I possibly can. And unfortunately, in this case, there's going to be one section with some dark stone, but it wasn't our doing. We gave it our best shot, tried a couple different ways to get that algae growth to burn off of there, but didn't happen. And so that's just the way it is. Overall, everything else looks good though. I'm satisfied with the driveway. The pool deck looks great. These arches turned out really good. I'm actually going to treat these one more time with a post-treatment. I do just see a couple little dark spots on there, but overall, I'm happy with the way things turned out, and I'm pretty sure the customer will be too. And so, once again, appreciate you guys watching these videos. Be sure to like the video if you like what we're dishing out. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way, every time we drop a video, you'll be the first to watch it. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. Wash on, guys.